And so I started thinking, how many other people out there have, sacred money goals that they haven't done or they're not moving forward with? And what if we could set up a company to help people set aside sacred money into what I call your work-life balance, an actual savings account that we set up for people, and help them like plan and save and actually go and do things that move the needle on happiness for them.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Sparks of Gratitude podcast. We are grateful for you and especially grateful that you're listening to us today. And today we have a special guest who's going to help us with our mission that we can ignite that fire inside our heart with the Sparks of Gratitude. And we have Travis Ashby visiting us today.
Hey, everybody.
Yep. Welcome, Travis.
Yeah, thanks, Randy. Glad to be here.
Travis, thank you. Travis is a friend of mine that I met several years ago. We used to be part of a group where we'd get together, kind of a mastermind, and discuss how do we become better friends, husbands, fathers, business owners, and in every aspect of our life. And it was an amazing experience that we shared together. And during that time, I learned a story about Travis's life that impacted me deeply, which is what I hope we'll be able to talk about today.
Yeah, no, it was amazing. That group was life-changing for me. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today if it weren't for that group, and which will make more sense when we tell this story.
Yeah, well, I'm excited for that. Well, tell me, what's getting you excited today? What's getting you going?
Yeah, I'm just really excited to just kind of know what I want to accomplish in my life, figured out what I wanted to be when I grew up, and I'm working on it now. It's been an interesting 8-year journey for me, but yeah, I'm excited to kind of share what that journey's been about and I'm working on, but just excited to be working on just helping people find happiness in their life. We've never had higher levels of depression and addiction and divisiveness and suicide, all these horrible things. And, the world's never been unhappier. And, it's just ended up being something that I wanted to change, I wanted to make a difference in. And so helping people kind of find their personal happiness equation, because what made you happy 5 years ago might be totally different than today. And what are those pieces that make that up? And so that's what I'm passionate about, is helping people. I call it your happestry. So it's like, think of your happiness tapestry, right? Like the tapestry on your wall at the end of your life, has images of all the things that brought you the most happiness. What are those images? What's on your happestry right now? What needs to be on there before it's all said and done? Helping people figure out their personal happiness equation is my passion.
I love it. I'm going to use that word now. What's my happestry?
Yeah. Exactly.
I can't believe I never heard you say that before, but I love it. I'm going to use that all the time.
Yeah.
So tell me, what does happiness mean to you? This has become something important in your life.
Yeah, it has been something that's important to me. I feel like I've always been a pretty happy person. I've always been a pretty optimistic, happy person, but I definitely learned some interesting lessons about happiness. And one of them was from my mom when I was 12 years old. So we grew up in just a little backstory. So me and my two sisters lived in a middle-class neighborhood in Salt Lake with, my parents, and just kind of a standard upbringing. And we had lots of friends and lived in the same neighborhood. And then, when I was 11 years old, parents sat us down and they were getting divorced, right? And didn't even see it coming. They didn't fight. It was totally just out of left field. And we were pretty upset. I mean, it was something that was pretty shocking to us. And my mom had met another guy. He was a pilot. And, she left my dad, and I was like, it was a hard time because I was a mama's boy. Like if she was home, I was by her side. She'd watch old Western movies. I'd be on the couch next to her. Like we were as close as any mother and son have ever been. And when she left my dad, I was really upset. And so when we moved out with my mom, this guy would come over, and I just remember like throwing hangers and toys and hateful words, anything I could to make him mad or make her cry. Like I was just so angry. And it was a really hard time. And then, 6 months into that was my 12th birthday, and she needed to go to Denver for a singing competition. And so she asked me what I wanted for my birthday, and I just said, I just want to go with you and Dad. I just want to go hang out with you two. And so they were cool about it. And I remember just like this day was the most amazing day ever. I went with my mom and my dad for the first time. They went out and bought me a suit because I was just becoming a 12-year-old, and in our church, that's kind of a big deal. And I remember just like seeing them kind of laugh and be happy, and I had all this hope all of a sudden that like maybe they could get back together, maybe things could work out. And so we came back, and I remember she bought me a wallet for my birthday, and And that comes into the story in a minute. She ended up going on this trip. And then I remember the next day she had left, and this was my birthday, and I was celebrating my birthday with my friends and my dad at the sports mall down in Murray, Utah. And all of a sudden my dad walks into the gym, and I could tell he just got off a call, and he was pretty upset. Pulled us off to the side and said, "We need to go." I'm like, "Well, all my friends are here," and and he's like, "We need to go." And so we jumped in the car and we started driving to my grandma's house. And I remember me and my sisters were asking, "What's going on?" And my grandma had emphysema, and so she was on oxygen, and she had really bad health. And so I assumed that she had passed away. And then when I walked in her front door and she was sitting on the couch, I just knew. I knew that something had happened with my mom. And my dad turned on the news, and anyway, the plane had crashed in the mountains of Colorado over by Aspen. It was 6 people in this little Cessna prop plane, and she had passed away in this plane accident. And I remember when my dad had first told, when I first found out, the first thing that I thought about was just how horribly I treated her before she died. And it was something that was really difficult for me to kind of process. Like, I just remember thinking, like, this is a burden that's too hard to bear. Like, how am I going to live the rest of my life knowing how horribly I treated her? I just wanted to tell her sorry. And I remember going back, we ended up leaving, and I remember going back to the house, and my presents were on the table. And I remember I just did not care at all about what was in those things. It didn't matter. And I remember going to bed that night, and then just waking up the next morning, and just, the day after something like that happens, you just try to think if it was a dream or if it was real. And once it all processed, I remember just going outside and sitting outside on there's these green electrical boxes, right? That sit outside we were in this apartment complex, and I remember sitting on one of those, and I remember the kids were all playing out in the field, and I think some were trying to talk to me, but I just was in the zone, just like zoned out, thinking about this. And I remember just like praying and just offering a prayer and saying, Heavenly Father, help me know what to do here. Like, I just don't think that I can, live my life with this. And I remember just all of a sudden just having this feeling or this thought that your mom gave you your wallet. Take your wallet out. And I remember reaching in my pockets, and I had my wallet in there. And I pulled this wallet out, and I remember just having this thought to open it up. And I opened it up, and there was a picture. Those plastic casings that used to go in wallets with pictures in them. And there's a picture of my mom in there. I remember just staring at her, her beautiful face, and looking at her. And then all of a sudden, I had this thought to turn the picture over, and I turned the picture over, and there was writing on the back of it. And I cleared my eyes, and I remember just reading this writing, and all it said on it was, "Remember the good times." And it was signed Kathy in her beautiful cursive signature. And I remember the feeling that just came over me of just that she forgave me, that everything was okay. And it was just an undeniable feeling that I felt like she was there, and that I was loved and cared for. And it was just a burden that was completely lifted. For the rest of my life, I never worried about how I treated her before she died. I just knew that everything was good. And the feelings that I had after that, or I guess I should say the gift that she gave me after that, was just that, no matter how hard of a trial you could be going through, you have a choice. You have a choice to get bitter and upset and angry at the world and take hard things and go that direction, or you can find ways to find hope, healing, and happiness, through a different course. And that was kind of the first lesson I guess I had on, just choosing to be happy no matter what. And then after that, life was crazy. My dad married a lady that had 6 kids from 4 different guys, and we had 11 kids in this house. I had 2 sisters that went to 11 kids because they had my 2 brothers really closely afterwards. And it was just a really chaotic situation for my whole rest of my teenage years, which is a whole separate story. But yeah, that was kind of the story of how I kind of got on that path towards finding happiness through hard things.
What was it during that as a 12-year-old kid? I know you got inspiration sitting out there, and you were praying, and you felt like, I need to open the wallet. Tell me about how you were able to get the insight to look for the good even through the challenge, or how do you continue to do that?
Yeah, we went to church every week, and I just had a very strong belief in God, and I just grew up knowing that I had that source of help and strength to go to, and so it was just a natural reaction for me to kind of go there, and fully believing that I would get some sort of answer and know what to do. And so that's always been a source of hope for me, knowing that I'm not alone in this life. I have help to draw. And so,
what was your mom like?
Yeah, she was the life of the party type of a lady, always the one that coordinated the family parties and the friend groups, and we would have game nights at our house, and she was just everybody's best friend. I mean, just very athletic, played volleyball and softball, and just the life of the party, and just everybody who knew her loved her. She was one of the directors of this. It was called the Mountain Jubilee Chorus. I think it was like 300 women. And she was like one of the directors in charge of it. But she just loved to sing and just loved life. She was a very happy-going person. So
You talk about how you felt guilt when she passed, that, how you had treated her, and found, through this grace that, okay, it's good with her.
Yeah.
Was it hard for you forgiving her? You mentioned before that was a challenge when they were divorced. And
yeah, I mean, as a kid, you don't really understand, what's going on with, what could be behind the scenes with your parents. But for me, after she passed away, I guess I just never, I don't know. I kind of got some insight into maybe what was going on in the relationship that led her to do what she did. And I guess I got a little bit of understanding of what she was needing and maybe missing in her life that helped. So,
and then we fast forward years down the road, and I know some about the story here, and so I kind of want to prompt you to that. But many years have passed, and you've still been pondering and thinking about your mom.
Yeah.
And she taught you something. Maybe tell us about that experience, a dream, and telling the story to your friend. And
yeah, so another part of the story was after I had that experience with the wallet, that night, I kept a journal at the time, so I have it all kind of written down. So in my mind, it's as clear as it happened yesterday. But I had this dream about her where I was on this mountainside, like climbing up this mountain, and I remember coming over this boulder and seeing this meadow at the top of this mountain, and this plane fuselage spread across this mountainside. And I remember seeing, my mom, and I met her halfway kind of by the plane fuselage, and I remember talking with her in this dream, and it was such a real dream. I mean, it was like I could smell the wildflowers and feel the wind in my face. I mean, it was so real. And I remember just talking with her for what seemed like 12 hours, just walking across this mountainside and seeing this lake below and just talking with her. And I remember the only thing, the thing that was impressed me the most was when I woke up, how happy I felt. I just felt so much happiness, and I felt very lucky that I got to see her after she had passed away and talk with her. I remember running into my dad's room and waking him up and say, "Dad, I just talked with Mom," and he was just asking me questions and saying, "Well, what did she say to you?" And I remember stopping and like thinking, what did she say to me? And I could only remember a couple of things, and everything else I couldn't remember. But the one thing that I remembered is her telling me that my sisters were going to be going through a hard time, to watch out for them, and which they did. They had a really, and I can fill you in on kind of what happened there. And so, and then the other thing was just that she just like gave me advice to, just don't do drugs, and don't, like, she just gave me some advice of just like, things not to do as a teenager. And so I just woke up from that, and it was very, right when I woke up from that, I remember just thinking like, oh my gosh, I want to go to that place one day, and it was just stored in the back of my mind. And for 27 years, I'd kind of subconsciously thought about it. And then that, the reason I actually ended up going on the trip to finally go there was because of the group that we all had and committing ourselves to kind of surface meaningful goals and things like that, which actually led to that. But to backtrack with my sister, my stepmom ended up kicking my sisters out of the house within a year or two, and they just lived with random relatives and people for the rest of their lives. And she tried kicking me out, but my dad was, I don't know, for whatever reason, he was always just super supportive of me, and that didn't ever work out very well.
And they were close to your age? Were they older?
One was older, one was younger. And so we were pretty close in age, just a year and a half older, a year and a half younger. So the three of us were.
That must have been close. Pretty hard.
Yeah, it was hard. We definitely didn't get along with my stepmom. She had, like I said, 6 kids from 6 different people, and we had a brother that committed suicide, and there was a lot of kind of craziness that happened in that. So it was kind of a dark time for sure, from the time I was 12 to the time I left the house at 19. Pretty crazy situation.
And eventually, it took 27 years.
Yeah.
But eventually you did make that trip to the crash site.
Yeah. Yeah, and the story with that was when I was in 2015, I joined, I think right around that time is when we started doing our group.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the group was great because I kind of wanted to have a group of people that I could just be very open with and transparent with, to help each other accomplish goals. And I love the group because we had an acronym, we called it TRIPS, right? So temporal goals, spiritual, relationship, intellectual, and physical goals. Yeah. And so, we would talk openly about, our goals, and it was a great forum to be able to just be very transparent. You kind of felt like these are people that you could trust and just be open about anything and everything.
Yeah, vulnerability and accountability were all part of it.
Yep, accountability and all of that. And so 1 month I had accountability partner Brian Titus in our group. And, I went to lunch with him. It was on my birthday. I remember we went to J-Dog's in Cottonwood Heights, and we were sitting there and we were talking about my goals. And I was looking for inspiration because I had just sold my previous company that I had built for about 8 years, and really wanted to find my why. Like I remember reading Simon Sinek's book. You start with why, and I'm like, well, what's my why? And it was, I remember even surfacing this with the group, like how frustrated I was. I wanted to what am I passionate about? What is the thing that, what's the legacy I'm going to leave my 3 boys? Like at the time I had an internet marketing agency. I'm like, I'm not going to go give a TED talk on internet marketing. Like I could care less about any of that. And so I knew that I wasn't passionate with what I was doing, and I needed to work on something that was meaningful to me personally. And so I sold the company, and it afforded me a couple of years to try to figure it out. And then it was 2 of the most frustrating years of my life, like just going through this 2-year period, trying to figure out my why, like my purpose. And it was an interesting journey, and it was kind of capstoned by this lunch meeting with Brian Titus. And I remember sitting there with him and telling him, gosh, I need to find inspiration. Like how do I get, and so he's like, well, how do you get inspiration? What are times in your life when you've been the most inspired, and what brought that on? And I ended up, because it was my birthday, I ended up sharing with him that story about my mom passing away on her birthday. And I told him about that dream. And when I was done telling him about that dream, I kind of just said in passing, gosh, I've always wanted to go to that place. I feel like I would know it if I saw it. And he stopped me and was like, why haven't you done that yet? I'm like, I don't know. He's like, call your sisters before you leave lunch and plan that trip, or you're never going to do it. And if you remember Brian, he was just like a no-nonsense guy. And so he sat there, and I started talking again. He's like, no, you need to call your sisters. And so I called my sisters up, like right there during the lunch table, or during the lunch meeting. And I said, hey, would you guys want to go, to the crash site? And I've always wanted to go. And so we planned it for August. And so, and this was in April 28th when we were having this lunch meeting. And so I ended up, they were like, yeah, that's amazing. Like, we're totally in. And so I had to track down like the first responder, the old newspaper articles. I remember there was one picture of this guy snowshoeing in, and here's the plane fuselage, and and it said Steve Jewett, blah, blah, blah. And so I tracked the guy down, and I ended up getting a hold of this guy, and it was his first search and rescue was this crash site of my mom's, and he totally remembered it. He's like, I remember it like it was yesterday. He's like, the reason I remember it is because when I was down there, and saw that everybody instantly had died on impact, like it was very clear. But this avalanche broke, and I had to get into the plane fuselage to try to survive this avalanche that came down, and it missed him by like 20 feet or something. But he's like, I totally remember it. This is where it's at. He gave me the topographic map, and he like showed me it's Lonesome Lake. It's right above Lonesome Lake. Like, here it is. So I was able to find out the location and get Google Maps and figure it all out. And then the day before we were going to go on this trip, I remember like had the thought. I was thinking about this trip, and then I just remembered all of a sudden that before my mom died, her wallet was returned to me. And inside of her wallet was her driver's license. So I've always carried her driver's license around on me. She had like 2 driver's licenses in her. You probably can't see it. But anyways, she's got like this awesome 90s hair. You can't really see it from here. But I had her driver's license in my wallet. And then she had $200 of cash in her wallet. And I considered it sacred money, so I was never planning on spending it. I put it inside a picture frame that I just had with me all the time. It was just kind of fanned out, this money and this driver's license. And the day before we were going to leave, I remember this money, and I had this idea, and I told my sisters about it. I said, did you guys know I've had this money from Mom's wallet all these years? Why don't we have her pay for our dinner tonight? Let's have Mom pay for part of our river rafting experience that we're going to do. And they were like in tears. They're like, oh my gosh, this is such a good idea. And so I ended up going on this trip with my sisters, and the whole time I suddenly was just in flow. I just started thinking about this idea of sacred money. Like, if you had sacred money, what would you spend it on, right? And as I was thinking about that, I thought, gosh, why did it take me 27 years to do this trip? Like, I had this thing that I always wanted to do, but it was very subconscious. It took a friend of mine to pull it out of my head, put it on the calendar, held me accountable to go and do it, and then I went and did it. And it was a life-changing experience. I mean, me and my sisters went on this amazing trip, and we played her favorite board games, and we listened to our favorite music, which was John Denver, and we just had like this amazing trip. And we're like, why did it take us so long to do this? And so I started thinking, how many other people out there have, sacred money goals that they haven't done or that they're not moving forward with? And what if we could set up a company to help people set aside sacred money into what I call your work-life balance, it's an actual savings account that we set up for people, and help them like plan and save and actually go and do things that move the needle on happiness for them. So when I was in the mountains with my sisters, I had the whole vision for this company set up, the happestry idea. I had this equation, it spells the word feel, and it was freedom, experiences, energy, and love. So basically the kind of key components that, for my personal happiness equation, is this feel happier. So like freedom, for example, I mean, freedom from debt, freedom from addiction, freedom from ignorance, and freedom to just like live and do the things you want to do. Like freedom is a principle of happiness that I want to help people find. Experiences is just creating memories with people you love. They're the longest ongoing study on happiness. It's like 70 years long and still ongoing, said how do people live longer and happier lives? And it all drilled down to meaningful relationships. And it's not necessarily about quantity, it's about quality, and it's about creating memories with people that you care about the most and investing in that. So I was really big on having experiences and that move the needle on happiness for people. And then energy, if you have more spiritual, physical, whatever energy, you're going to be a happier person. So how do we help people get more energy in their life and in every area? And then just love, like if you got to have gratitude, you got to love people, you got to serve people, like that's a principle of happiness. And so those are kind of like the four things that I drilled in on. And it all like just kind of came to me during these 2 days.
Those are freedom, experiences,
energy,
and love.
Yeah. Yeah, and so I thought, well, what if I create software? Because first of all, we all know that if we don't have goals that are like kind of visual and like written down, and especially if everybody kind of knows about the goals, like they're just not going to happen. They're way higher probability of them happening if you have that. So I thought, well, is there any software out there that like helps people kind of like map that out and allow everybody to kind of see what actually matters to you in your life? And I couldn't find anything, especially in the business world. I couldn't find anything that gave managers any insight into things that people actually cared about. Companies were still just giving people gift cards and swag and stuff. I'm like, nobody cares about any of that. It's so stupid. These little point system, software. I'm like, there's nothing that gives managers any insight into what actually will move the needle on happiness for people and what they actually care about. And I've come to find out when I started talking to people, a lot of people were like me, they didn't know. Like 70% of the people I met with didn't even know. So I thought, well, what if we create what I call an inspiration engine, which is basically, another way to be able to facilitate inspiration for people. And so that's where it all started.
Yeah, and that's interesting that you're observing that many people don't know what they want or where they get inspiration or what it is that's that next thing for them. Well, didn't you go through that for that 2-year period? You're wondering like, what is my inspiration? What am I supposed to be doing? What do I want? So you were going through that yourself, and it took somebody to help
facilitate
it for you. And so all these things have been. These dominoes were falling.
Yeah, it just kind of fell. And so when I finally came up with the idea for it, and I knew that like, I didn't want people just to have some surface level goal. I didn't want to have someone like, oh yeah, I'll just go to Hawaii. We're like, well, why? Why do you want to go to Hawaii? Like, what's the meaning? What's the why behind it? So I really wanted to be able to dig in and help people like really figure out like, what is it that actually makes you happier? Is it this, big, nice fancy car that you just bought, or is it something, and they're like, most people are just like caught in the hamster wheel of life and work, and they just waste time, and even just get caught busy working, and all of a sudden, let's say you have a 16-year-old, they're gonna be out of the house in 2 years. It's like that time's going by this fast, and it'll go by in the blink of an eye, and you'll have regrets if you hadn't done things maybe you wish you would have done. And so what I want to do is just like kind of bring that out of people, be able to help them identify right now what really matters and make sure they're making progress towards those things, and then be able to get their company and other people involved in seeing what you're trying to do, almost like our group, right? Basically what we did in our group, that microcosm of the Rainmakers group that we created, I wanted to be able to create software that could facilitate that sort of thing for everybody else. So this goal vision board software is what we ended up creating with Worklyfe.
And this vision, from this April decision to do it, through the August showing up with your sisters, putting on your backpacks, going to the crash site, what was that like?
Yeah, leading up to that, just the anticipation happiness was a very real thing.
Yeah.
Like knowing that I was going to do that and working towards that, it was a very, very real thing to have that anticipation happiness of being able to know that I was going to finally go do this thing I've always wanted to do. And so for other people, it's writing the book, it's starting the podcast, it's whatever it is. I think just by having those written down and knowing that you're going to actually do that, and then the company coming around saying, hey, look, we see that you're wanting to do this, write this book. It's going to cost $5,000 to self-publish or whatever. Like, here's some things you can do for the company, and then we'll help you get further faster towards those things. And so it's now like, you help me as a business owner be successful. I'm going to help you. I'm going to give back to you and make sure that you're accomplishing things that matter to you. And now it's like surfacing what people care about, what the company cares about, and then creating alignment between those things. Like, that's the future of work. That's what has to happen.
Yeah. And you used the term anticipation happiness. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah. I mean, it's just a real thing. It's just, when you have, when you've been able to identify, goals that matter to you, and then you are able to set those and you're working towards those, like, anticipation happiness is a real thing that people experience. And
it's very real. I love, my wife knows this about me. And when I write my gratitude journal every day, if I flipped through them, I could probably find many, many entries when one of the things I write that I'm grateful for is anticipation for something, or just anticipation in general, because I know how much anticipation stimulates me, stimulates my brain. I love anticipation almost as much or more than the thing that arrives.
Totally.
In fact, sometimes when the thing arrives, there's a letdown.
Yeah.
Because the anticipation, I got to enjoy it for a very long time. But it changes. And I learned this talking to Nate and Vanessa Quigley from Chatbooks a while ago. They talked about something called elaborative reminiscing, which is after an experience. Yeah. When you can reminisce about that, it brings it all back
the after
and
effects.
Solidifies, right? And so then you can extend that experience.
Yeah, no, it's true. There's a term called adaptive adaptation, where like, if you buy something, say it's golf clubs, like your happiness levels will spike, but they drop off very quickly afterwards. And you're not any happier than you were before, if not less happy, because the buyers are more, and things like that. But anticipation, you have this anticipation happiness, and then you have a long-term after talking about. So it is a more sustainable kind of happiness plan. So, and in companies, like I said, when you're just like giving spiffs and it's just stuff, or it's just, it's just, your body just adapts quickly, and then your happiness levels just drop off.
I love to hear the lessons that people learned from their parents, especially when you learned, you're like, oh, what did your parents teach you that turned out to be right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we don't want them to be so, especially in those teenage years. We're like, oh, stupid parents. My friends' parents are way better. You know? And you learn these lessons from your mom, and you continue to learn them. But this experience, this spark of inspiration for sacred money. Maybe talk a little bit more about sacred money.
Yeah.
I've heard you say things like money can't buy happiness.
Yeah.
But sacred money.
Yeah, sacred money's been interesting. Like, I'll give an example with my 16-year-old. I started thinking about this company. I thought, gosh, what if everybody could have a Worklyfe account? What if everybody could have, they have their LinkedIn account, you have your Worklyfe account, and this is like your GoFundMe marries LinkedIn for your personal passions, goals, and dreams, right? And I started thinking, gosh, who's helping, just people work towards things that really matter? And I said, I even started thinking about like my kids. And I'm like, gosh, I wonder if like this could work for like a 16-year-old. And so I kind of put it to practice a little bit, and with my 16-year-old, and he started working at a little ice cream shop when he was 15, scooping ice cream. And, and his goals were to, get a car when he was 16 and get Fortnite skins and, things that normal kids want, Nike shoes and stuff. And I started talking to him about kind of sacred money and things that would really bring happiness. And he kind of surprised me. This was last summer. Yeah, just this last summer. He had saved up all this money. And I told him, because part of the Worklyfe is like, hey, if you put in a certain amount, your company could match a certain amount towards things that matter to you. So there's kind of a matching component, like a 401k, but for like, and so I always told him like, hey, look, I'll do a match multiplier on certain things. Like if you go have experiences like with your family, like if you put a certain amount of money in, I'll match 2x, towards that. For a car, I'll do a 1x match. Like if you pay for half your car, I'll pay for half your car. And so he was thinking about that, and he surprised me one day, and he's like, Dad, my wife would go to Disneyland every year. She loves Disneyland. I'd rather gouge my eyes out with a spoon than go to Disneyland again.
I got to talk to your wife, because I'm the guy that loves Disneyland.
Yeah, she loves it. And I'm just like, why don't we go to like Cedar Point, like, and go to these real roller coasters and stuff. And so I'm just like, we're not going, we can't go every year. Like that is expensive, and we just, whatever. So this was our off year. And Boston, my son, he kind of knew that Mom loved Disneyland. He's like, Dad, what if I want to maybe surprise Mom and take her to Disneyland? And he'd been saving up, scooping ice cream, right? And I said, yeah, she would absolutely love that. And if you do it, then, this is, I'll match X. And so he surprised her with that and took her to Disneyland and paid for, like a lot of his money to go. And they went and had the most unbelievable time and created memories I'll never forget. I remember just when, he finally made that association towards kind of like sacred money and creating memories and stuff, like just, it just made my wife's entire year, and it made my year to see him, be willing to do that. And it gave me hope for this working for other people. If it can get through to a 16-year-old kid, then.
I love it. And then the past several years, you've been putting this to practice, creating the software. What are you using to help people discover what is meaningful and important to them, so they can find that sacred, meaningful thing or experience to invest?
Yep. So what happened after? I'll fill in the gap on what's happened since. So when we had the experience, or when I had the idea to sell my company and try to find my why, that was in 2015. I went to lunch in 2017. And then after I met with Brian, had this experience, came back, I knew I wanted to launch this company. I didn't know what it was going to be. I just knew that the why behind it was helping people find happiness and helping the world be a happier place. Helping people overcome hard things, like what's preventing you from doing your best work and living your best life. Is it addiction? Is it depression? Is it, so I thought, what if companies could do like a match, like a 2x, 3x, 5x match towards mental health, towards this? And I thought, gosh, why can't there be pre-tax benefit for that? So I thought, why is 401k the only thing you can get pre-tax benefit for? Like, there should totally be a way to be able to, have companies help people overcome things. And so I had this vision. It was starting to form, and I knew that I knew what the purpose of the company was and what I wanted to accomplish, but I didn't know exactly what the offering was going to be. And so I spent about 4 years trying to figure it out, and I had never launched a tech company before. So I came up with a plan, and it was a 5-year plan to launch the company. And I remember just feeling like I finally found this and what I want to do and my passion. I'm not going to screw it up. And so I just kind of like had this feeling of just be patient and let it develop and do research, right? And test my hypothesis and assumptions and things like that. And so I came up with a plan. I knew I'd never launched a tech company. So I went, and the first thing I did is start talking to all my tech founder friends. And one of the guys that I was talking with was a guy named Jaron Paul. And I remember talking to him about my idea for this company. And specifically, I had spent my career in sales. And so I thought, gosh, salespeople, it's just so coin operated. Like, it's just, I don't know. I just felt like there was a lot of toxic culture in sales. And I thought, gosh, like spiffs and incentives are always just so coin operated. And it's just like, why don't we like actually find out what they actually care about? Stop guessing, giving them gift cards or even cash that just disappears in your paycheck. And, you don't really associate that to doing things that matter. And so I was thinking about along the lines of like having this be like a cool, like new kind of sales incentive type platform to start. So I was talking to Jaron, and he had this idea to kind of automate sales commissions. And so it was called Spiff. He said, well, why don't you help me get Spiff going, and then you could be figuring out this on the side. Give me at least a year was what we had talked about, right? And so I joined the Spiff team right when it first started, and they just got acquired by Salesforce. They just announced it a week ago. And so I joined the Spiff team, learned a ton with that team, raised our first round of funding, getting the first customers on board. And then after I'd been there for, I think it was like a year and a half, I just felt like I needed to get on to the next part of my journey. And I knew that our software is going to also be in the HR side of things, like recognition, rewards, incentive side. And because I didn't want it just to be for salespeople, I want it to be for everybody. Like, salespeople get everything. They're always getting the cool President's Club trips and different things. I'm like, well, what about everybody else? What about if they're helping the company reach the revenue goals, like, why aren't they getting benefits and stuff? And so I started researching all the recognition and rewards companies I could find, and I found a company called Blueboard out of San Francisco that was all about experiential rewards. So it was all about a whole platform of like, give your people the gift of experiences, and the whole, hedonic adaptation, concept and all that. They were just all about that. And so like where you have some, companies that are like gift cards, cash, and so you have these guys on the other extreme experiences. And so I thought, well, that's kind of cool. And so I went and met the founders one day in San Francisco. I just flew out there and got a hold of these guys. We met at a coffee shop, and I gave them my vision for what this company was going to be, Worklyfe. And at the time, I was calling it 401 play. It was going to be like 401k for experiences, and it evolved to what it is now. But I was talking to them about it, and I said, hey, I want to come and help you guys, grow this. And who knows, like maybe there's ways for us to kind of like team up and partner. And they are mostly selling to HR teams at the time. And I thought, well, why aren't you selling to sales teams? Like, they're always trying to figure out, spiffs and stuff. And like, why don't we go and give them, kind of productize what you have as experiential spiffs for sales teams. And so I joined to help them productize that side. And learned a ton at Blueboard, just had an awesome experience. So I spent, the next couple of years there. And that's where I met one of my co-founders. And anyways, and then I finally left. So it ended up being 4 years, and I finally felt like I had everything I needed to launch Worklyfe. And so I launched this full-time in 2021, and then spent a full year trying to just nail down exactly what the product was going to be. I met my co-founder, Todd, who's an engineer, technical guy and co-founder. And then we kind of figured out what it needed to be, like this goal vision board software, that we gave people actual bank accounts. That was like their personal Worklyfe bank account with a Worklyfe Visa card. So they could just go quickly spend on, sacred money on things that matter to them. And then John from Blueboard called me just out of the blue one day and just said, "Hey, I think I'm leaving. I'm looking for my next thing or whatever." And I never wanted to take anybody because I just really appreciated the experience. So I didn't want to like steal anybody from there. And he was already leaving, and I said, "Well, this is what we're working on." And he's like, "Oh my gosh, I'm totally interested." So he became an investor and then eventually a third co-founder. And so, and then we raised some money from about 30 investors and just wrapping up another little bridge loan right now. And now we have, 20 customers and are just kind of finding our go-to-market strategy right now. So it's just been a kind of a crazy journey, but that's kind of like, that's the full journey.
We've come around. It seems you were very deliberate and patient about jumping into this, and you just felt like you needed to be for this one.
I did, but also I feel like a lot of the smartest entrepreneurs are risk mitigators. Everybody thinks that entrepreneurs are risk takers. And I think that it's sometimes very irresponsible to just jeopardize everything in your life, your mortgage, cash out everything and just go start some business. Like, I don't think that, like, if you read the story about the Warby Parker guys or other people, like, they had other jobs that they did while they were kind of testing out their hypothesis and figuring it out and then proving some product market fit and then going for it. I think a lot of the smartest entrepreneurs are pretty good at being risk mitigators. And so I read some books that kind of like got me thinking along those paths and thinking like, it's not fair for me. My wife's got a lot of anxiety. She just stresses out a lot about things. And so like being an entrepreneur is not her life. Like, she's like, I would so much rather you been a doctor or a lawyer, like, just have a stable job. That's just her thing. And so I had to make sure that I could compromise with her and what she wanted, which is my entrepreneurial dreams and things, and be able to find a way to match those up. And so I was able to go and just go start working. I'd been an entrepreneur since 2007, so to go start working for somebody was hard, like a Blueboard. But I was able to make money and then earn some equity, Spiff and then Blueboard, and then be able to kind of cover a path to buy myself the freedom to go do the thing that I was passionate about. And so I definitely had to have, I'm someone that drives fast, I talk fast, I think fast, I have an idea a minute type of guy. And so to be able to sit back and be patient was very difficult. And I got some advice early on from my first investor who said, he gave me a military term, it was slow as smooth and smooth as fast, right? And he's just like, dude, smooth it out. He's like, you'll know when you know. And when you know, then you go. And like, we're right now at the point where we know. Like, we've built this fire, we've got it, we've nailed the product, we've nailed the vision, like we know our vision. And now it's just like, okay, let's pour gas on this thing. So that's where we're at right now.
So with this hypothesis that you were testing all along, what have you learned from the initial hypothesis that has changed?
Yeah, so for me, I was just all in on experiences. It's all about experiences, blah, blah, blah. And I realized that sometimes it's not. Sometimes for people, it's overcoming addiction. Sometimes for people, it's being able to save for the down payment of your first house.
Right. What's that meaningful thing in their life that they want to invest toward?
Yeah, and what it is for one person is totally different than someone else. There's no equation that works for everybody. Like, feel doesn't work for everybody. It works for me. So my goal was like, I want to help build software that helps people figure out their personal happiness equation, and it's a moving target. And so once again, I was really happy in 2013, having an amazing business, successful, I had 50 employees and like 3 boys and a new house. Like, I was really happy. And then 2 years later, I start with why. I'm like, what's my why? I no longer could move on and be happy unless I had that. I just knew that I needed that. I just felt a pull to do something bigger. And so it just changes for people. So they need to have. Do you
expect that you're gonna hit another one of those?
Oh, I'm sure that I will, for sure. But for right now, I'm like, want to build software that facilitates inspiration. I want to be the best in the world, inspiring people to go and do things that matter, that move the needle and happiness for them. I
love this. I love seeing what this has become from that spark that it started at years ago when I heard it. And I come back, I'm looking at this whole conversation we've had and going back to that 11-year-old Travis, 12-year-old Travis. What do you think he would think of you right now?
I think that I was given a gift, a very special gift during a very hard time that got me through a really difficult 7-year stretch. And because of the gift that I was given from my mom after she had passed away with, remembering the good times, like staying positive, like taking that other, that positive approach. I think that, being able to somehow be able to give that back to other people, because life's hard and people go through really, really, really hard things. Having a way to be able to give people, to bring more hope, healing, and happiness to the world, like truly being able to do that for other people brings me a lot of happiness. And I'm just excited to be able to help people get through this hard thing called life and be able to help them like dream. I think when people stop dreaming, they start dying, and some people they've had hard things happen in their life and they just stop dreaming and they just get cynical. And I want to like fix that, right? I want to be able to help people like, no. We're, here's a path forward. We're going to help you and be able to have software and tools and different things that just bring hope, healing, and happiness. And Worklyfe is just the first step in a journey. Like I have a vision for, other parts of kind of the equation to help people with other parts of it hopping down the road. But it's just, I feel very blessed to be able to be on the journey that I'm on. And it honestly has been the most difficult thing ever because I'm so invested in it that it's just like, when you hit brick walls and different things, it's just like, it's just a roller coaster, but it's totally worth it.
And how do people get a Worklyfe account?
Yeah, they just go to our website. It's Worklyfe with a Y, so worklyfe.io, and they can just go on there and we can get them an account and let them play around with it, and then pretty easy to kind of get it going. And then but for the most part right now, that freemium model, like we're trying to figure out what will make this awesome, like the free version awesome for everybody to want to use. And we haven't quite nailed that down yet. I have ideas on what that needs to be. So right now we're mostly focused on just working with businesses and then bringing it to their employees and trying to unlock why this would be just awesome for anybody. I mean, like, for example, if you just like, if we're talking and working and all of a sudden, you help me out with something, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm so appreciative. What can I do for Randy? I could just go into your Worklyfe account. Like, oh my gosh, he's like $150 away from like this, getting tennis lessons for his daughter, goal or something. I just like top that off and transfer some of my Worklyfe balance into your account and say, thank you so much. It's not about the amount of money. It's about, appreciating someone in a meaningful way. And so I just love that it's not about the dollar amount. It's more just about, I'm gonna knock this goal out for you, So the idea of being able to, like, I have this vision for, like single teachers and stuff. We had this one teacher of my this is the last thing I'll share, is she was a single mom. She had raised her 2 teenage kids and she was working towards a Disney World trip forever, for so many years. She was a single mom and she was a couple of $1,000s away, but they were getting older. Her kids were getting older. And so I found out about it, and I rallied all the other, parents of my kids' class to be able to gather money and then pay for her trip so she could go. And she was so grateful. I just thought, gosh, this was so difficult though, to like track down all the parents and figure out, and find people's goals. It's just like, man, if Worklyfe could just be in place there, those are one of the first people I'd want to go to is teachers, right? Who are not getting paid what they should be getting paid to teach our children. Be able to get them Worklyfe accounts and be able to have an easy way for parents in the classroom to be able to just go look at that teacher's goals and be able to, work and life goals and be able to just like go throw money into their account quickly. So that's part of what I hope to accomplish for like, firefighters and teachers and just other people. I've got a lot of ideas, but we'll get there.
Yeah, you keep using the word about gratitude, how grateful she was for that, but then contributing to somebody is an expression of that gratitude, because it's my time and my earning that I want to express my gratitude towards something that is meaningful to you. Mm-hmm. I love it.
Yeah.
I can't wait to use it.
Yeah, it'd be fun. So
Travis, I'm so grateful for you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for doing this.
Yeah.
Because that's not easy what you're doing. You could go through life and do well, have a job, get it done, take care of your kids, but you've gone next level, and the world is a better place because of you.
No, I appreciate it. I'm glad you reached out, because it just almost like full circle for me, like coming back to somebody that was part of that initial Rainmakers group. Like this whole thing happened because that group helped me unlock this whole thing. Like it really was this group that unlocked that, and you were part of that group. So thank you for being part of that amazing group of people that I was able to go through that with. So
you're the best. And thank you everybody for listening. Check out Worklyfe. Tell your employers to use it. It's going to change the world. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.